Not working fine right now. So if you are online, you might not even be seeing me right now, but we're working on it. So I'm excited that you're here with us. We got lots going on. How many of you are reading Proverbs with us? Excellent, excellent. Or listening to Dr. Dennis, listening to him read? Yeah, that's awesome. The Message version paraphrase is so powerful. It uses such colorful language. And we're raising some funds for backpacks, so I don't want you to miss that. We'll talk about it again at the end. But we're trying to get backpacks full of school supplies for 100 kids. Listen, my wife's a teacher. Last year was rough, right? It was rough for kids. Let's help kids get started out well, because some of them have catching up to do. Some of them are gonna struggle. So help us out. $20 will provide a backpack full of school supplies. That's pretty awesome. So that's the other big thing going on right now. But most of everything, I thought, we've got a lot of wisdom going on because we're in Proverbs. I thought, who did I learn the most wisdom from in my life? And I'd like to introduce you to my mother. Yeah, this is my mom. And so Dr. Karen Cress is coming to us. She's going to bring the message today. And Mom, I'm excited to have you here with us.
Well, it's good to be here, and I'm so proud of you.
All right, sappiness over. Let's dig into Proverbs.
Not every parent can say that you're blessed by your kids. So I'm blessed by both of my kids, and especially those they married and the 2 grandkids. They are the best. So, So Proverbs. Let me just say, it took me a minute when Tim asked me. I have not preached. I'm more of a teacher trainer now, so in a very long time. So I may have to use notes. I usually don't use notes. So bear with me as I freak out here. Bob, I used to preach all the time, so it's just getting back in the groove. Bob back here on the soundboard says he has control of me, and I said, good, because I'm freaking. So let's begin with a word of prayer. Father, as we look at Proverbs, I know that you have a lot packed in there for us. And I just ask that today you will speak the words you want me to speak through me, and that people will hear what they need to hear to impact their lives for you. In your name I pray. Amen. So, kids, are you reading Proverbs? Is it weird? It's kind of hard to read, isn't it? And yet, it's one of the easiest books of the Bible to understand. Why is that? Because it's common. It deals with everyday life, everyday relationships, money, spirituality. It deals with all kinds of things that impact our lives throughout the centuries since it was written, which, by the way, we have no idea when that was. It was somewhere between the pre-exile and the post-exile, we think, maybe. On the other hand, as Tim said last week, we're not even sure who wrote it. We think Solomon did the first 9 chapters, but we have no idea who did the last. So Proverbs is kind of a mystery, but it's really good advice. So look at it like your mom giving you good advice, or your dad, or your uncle, or whoever it is you turn to for advice. Because this is a book of wisdom that cannot be replaced. In fact, to me, and I'm going to get into this in a bit, Proverbs is what connects the Old and the New Covenant. One of the things that connects the Old and the New Covenant. Because the Old and the New Covenant are really what the whole entire Bible is about, which, in my opinion, there's one word, and that's relationships. From start to finish, the Bible is about relationships. So, Proverbs are a literary form that we still use today. Are you aware of that? So, I'm going to give you a test. I'm not a teacher, but I want to give you a test. And I'm going to see if we can finish these sentences or finish these proverbs. What is this? Look before you leap. Right. What about the next one? The early bird gets the worm. You're doing good. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Very good. You can't. Whoops, I hit the wrong one. I guess is it this one? Yep. So it's the bottom one. Okay, we did that one. One bad apple spoils the entire barrel or bushel or whatever basket. I've heard it all kinds of different ways. If you can't stand the heat, I take that one to heart. I don't like cooking. All that glitters is not gold. And last, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Awesome. As I was looking for everyday, today, parables, or not parables, Proverbs, I found one that is even better. That is not as well known. Whoops, I keep hitting Tim, what am I doing wrong? Okay, there's where I'm at. Here's where I'm going. The new proverb is, experience comes from what we have done. Wisdom comes from what we have done badly. Anybody relate to that? Yes, I can so relate to that. My doctoral program, which I finished in just a couple years ago, I'm a late bloomer. Wow, did I learn from the badly part? Because that's where we have help, and somebody can help fix what it is we are considering incorrectly. Reader's Digest relayed the story of an employee at NASA who was assigned to prepare a presentation on lessons from their bad experiences with the Hubble Space Telescope. On his chart at the briefing, this employee read, lesson number 1, in naming your mission, never use words that rhyme with trouble. Hubble trouble. That true? That's right. Trouble sometimes follows us, and the Proverbs help us get through it. Proverbs are short, pithy statements that teach practical wisdom about life. They are brief and phrased to be catchy for easy memorization. So that this new one is a little tougher to remember, except I do remember the done badly part. Experience comes from what we've done. Wisdom comes from what we've done badly. There are 2 lines of parallel verse in the Bible. Actually, all Proverbs are. So we can train our eyes to read line by line, not sentence by sentence, because the whole thought is the 2 lines. 2 lines of poetry grouped together into one is called parallelism in the Bible. When you study the Bible, hermeneutics, that's called parallelism. So when you can have the first and the 2 lines together. Just in case you don't know, there are more than one book. There is more than one book of wisdom in the Bible. And really, to understand Proverbs, you have to understand that it takes at least 3 of those books to understand Proverbs and more. Proverbs, the 3 books. See if I can get this right. Backwards again. Okay, here's the 3 books. The first one is Proverbs, you know that. Second one is Ecclesiastes. Third is Job. Sometimes they add Psalms and Song of Solomon. Not everybody does, but occasionally they do. Now, the way to look at Proverbs in particular, or actually all 3 of these, is to understand that all 3 of them are answering the same question. What kind of world do we live in? How do we survive in that world? And how, the final question, which is actually for all 3, how do we be good at life? How can we be good at life? That is a question that is not just for today, and it wasn't just for the biblical time of Proverbs. Each of the 3 books answers these questions from a different perspective. So we look at Proverbs. Proverbs is from the perspective of a young, energetic teacher. So we can look at Danielle for that one. Ecclesiastes is the sharp, middle-aged critic. We'll pretend that's me. The old Job is from an old, weathered man who has experienced a lot in life, and we'll call that John, my husband, who is not here because this morning I found out he's preaching in Simi Valley. So, obviously, he didn't want to listen to me. So what in the world is wisdom? Tim talked about this a little bit last week. What is wisdom? I love this quote by J.L. Packer, in his book, Knowing God, which I read many, many years ago. Wisdom is the power to see and the inclination to choose the best and the highest goal together with the surest means of attaining it. Wisdom does not come just from knowledge, as Tim said last week. Even a better, okay, try this again. There we go. Wait. Okay, I might just skip this. An even better definition, yeah, this is it. Wisdom is the reward you get for a lifetime of listening when you would have preferred to what? Talk. Anybody in that camp? I have so many times had to relearn how to listen. Listening is a better part of wisdom, and we'll hear that in this book. So this book deals with a wide range of everything that makes up wisdom. But wisdom is smart. What makes her so smart? What in the world makes wisdom so wise? Proverbs sees things most people don't. Wisdom is not something that you can see or feel or touch or get. Wisdom is invisible. It is around us. It is a force. And the force, I think there's another one of these. Okay. What is the force of wisdom? The force of wisdom, according to the Hebrew time, comes from this wonderful Hebrew word that is most frequently translated wisdom, and it's called chokmah, or hakmah. Hakmah is an essence and a feeling. It's something that it's invisible, but it is always, most frequently, you do know that for every Hebrew word there is in the Bible, there's about 200 translations. I'm not kidding. Thankfully, I didn't have to memorize them all. But chokmah is most frequently translated wisdom. Wisdom, what is chokmah? It's an attitude and an attribute from God. It's not something we can earn. It's not something we can learn. It's something that God grants us. Wherever people are making good or just wisdom, they're tapping into that chokmah. When they're not, when they make really bad decisions, it goes to this other thing called that word, kesalut, I think, which means folly. Kesalut is where I spend most of my life, it seems, at times, what I want is chokmah. So Proverbs personifies this woman of chokmah, this woman of wisdom. Now, at the beginning, the first few chapters are written by a father, which we think is Solomon. We'll pretend it's Solomon because we don't really know for sure. But this woman that roams the earth and gives out wisdom and looks for people who will accept her wisdom is what the whole book of Proverbs is really about. You can create wisdom like a designer. She does. We don't. She creates wisdom like a designer. She talks about creation in chapter 8. Chokmah is not simply an intellectual knowledge. It is a word used to describe a skilled artisan. Think of all of the people in Hollywood. Those are skilled artisans. Those who develop and create constantly. Oceana is a skilled artist. Have you seen her writing? This girl can write. Skilled artisan is another way of expressing wisdom. It's not just knowledge. It's the ability to take that knowledge and do something with it. It's not some personal force. It is an attribute of God. And as an attribute of God, it's only available through God, through a relationship with God. Now, you know that Proverbs is broken up into different sections. There's chapters 1 through 9. And today is our chapter 10, which we're going to kind of ignore today, through the sermon anyway. You can read it. But I hope to give you some new insights on how to read Proverbs here in a second. Proverbs 1 through 9 is from the perspective we think of Solomon as a father. Chapters 10 through 31 are hundreds and hundreds of short quips or proverbs to help us understand what it means to be wise. What I love, and what I was raised believing actually, was that Proverbs was all written by Solomon for women. It's not. Just let me get that clear. Proverbs is not just for women. The last chapter talks about how to be a good wife, but it's an acrostic that begins with every letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The rest of it is all for people who want to be wise. So, in order to understand the Bible, any part of it, we have to understand the culture, the people, the original audience that it was written for. And I know that Tim has spent time on some of this with you. I'm looking at that, and that's different. Okay. That was my problem. Reciprocity, or a culture of countries. When others respect, you're in an honor and shame culture. When you're not, the shame part of that is when people scorn you for being inadequate. Ever heard the words never good enough? Sometimes I wonder if the culture of honor and shame is creeping into America, what is considered Western culture. But it's slowly beginning to turn into the same culture. But what I wanted to really show you is the difference between the two cultures. The Western culture that is based in guilt versus the rest of the world, which is based in the relationship. Relationships are key to the collective or the Eastern or biblical times. This started in biblical times. So it was even more prevalent because they didn't know of anything different. This was what the entire Mediterranean lived by, the rules of honor and shame. So this is the difference between the two. In the Western culture, we appeal to laws and justice to define morality, but in the honor and shame or the Western or Eastern world, they relied on relationships and reputation to define behavior. Reputation was saving face. You never put another person down. What would politics be like today if they did that? Wow, that'd be so much better. In the Western culture, we speak direct. We are very direct in our speech, sometimes too direct. In the Eastern culture, they speak indirectly. Why? To save face, so they don't hurt relationships. In the Western culture, we focus on the individual. But in the Eastern culture, they focused on what surrounds the whole idea of the entire book of Proverbs. So as you read, chapters 11 through whatever next week, think about honor and shame. What is this saying about the honor and the shame of this? And I'm going to say it's how to not have shame, how to live a good life without disgrace if you obey the wisdom of the book. So honor, as I said earlier, can be attained in two ways. One is ascribed. You're born into it. You can't choose it. You already have it. It's whether you're born into a family, or it's family connections, or something like that. But the other way is through acquired. It's sought after honor. What does that mean? That is where we get to this other part of the honor and shame society that few people talk about. And that is the patron-client-broker relationship. This is still today. I read a story about in the Philippines recently. The government wanted to get rid of this patron-client reciprocity type of society. So they tried to pay off everybody's debts. There wasn't enough money to pay off everybody's debts. Plus, it was destroying the society. So the society that integral to the honor and shame is this client, patron, and broker relationship. What is that? Let's look carefully. A paternal society is supported by infrastructure networks of favor and loyalty. This is so key to understanding Proverbs, because Proverbs gives us such a beautiful picture of what it's like to be in relationships. And the Bible is all about relationships. We like to say it's about theology, but it's about relationships. How do you treat one another? And so this patron-client relationship, to start with, neither party is inferior or dependent on the other. The patron-client, the patron is someone who gives something to a client that they need because the client needs it, not because the patron needs it, okay? Very important, because today, what do we have? We have banks that give us money so they can get interest, and they can charge us late fees, and they can benefit from using our money. That is not a patron-client relationship. A patron-client relationship we have very little understanding of in the Western world, because a patron is someone who is looking for someone to help. And sometimes they need a broker to help them get to that point. Help them find someone that needs their help. Now, sometimes this can be money. Sometimes it can be land. Sometimes it can be all kinds of different things. Social standings, an invitation to events. Remember, events are very important to the Eastern world. But the patron-client relationship is one of extreme loyalty. Once a patron bequests to the client whatever the need is, that client, the way they earn honor is through a word that is extremely important. I'm kind of jumping around all over here, guys that are trying to follow me. Good luck with that. The patron-client relationship sometimes needs a broker. I said that. But what they all need, and the one term central to it is this terrific word, charis, which is translated as grace. So in the New Testament, when Jesus gives grace, he is the patron, or more likely, the broker. He's giving grace of God to clients, to people around him. Charis is the term that defined the patron-client relationship, that grace given and grace received. But the client had an obligation, an extreme obligation, to show gratitude. If a client didn't show gratitude, they were shamed, they were pushed out of the group, because gratitude was the currency of the time. That also created loyalty between the patron and the client. Grace was a petition, was a way, and that's how they defined it. The grace that the patron gave to the client was something, land, influence, something. The grace that the client returned to the patron was always gratitude. In fact, they say the best credit rating one could have in the ancient world was a reputation for knowing how to show gratitude. So when you look at the book of Proverbs, much of it is about how do you live a life of success. That would mean showing gratitude. How do you show gratitude in really bad situations? That is such a key to me to understanding the entire Bible. Because the best credit rating, today we think that's, related to money. In the old world, it didn't. It related to relationships. How do you show gratitude for gifts received by your benefactor? So let's look at some of the chapters of this last week and what we can learn about honor and shame and patron-client relationships. Chapter 4, wisdom provides benefits. That's the short term, the shortened sentence. Wisdom provides benefits, benefactor, patrons, gifts, whatever that was that the patron gave. Wisdom, the wisdom of a patron, provided benefits, honor to the client. But in chapter 4, wisdom says you must listen carefully to stay off the wrong path, which will produce a healthy life of honor. So knowing that you have benefits, chapters 5 and 6 are the same. To avoid easy money and evil relationships. Gives us what? Honor. The benefits of avoiding easy money, that would be connecting yourself with a benefactor that was all about himself. Wow. The benefactors were instructed from being very small that their role was not to do anything for a client, for the benefactor's sake, but for the client's sake. So chapters 5 and 6 are how to avoid easy money and evil relationships. And those relationships would have been that benefactor-client relationship. Chapter 7 gets into avoiding seduction by being wise.